Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hosting this critically important, historic and timely hearing, and thank you for waving me on to this subcommittee to be a part of this conversation. Our forever Oversight Chairman, Elijah Cummings, often said that sunlight is the best disinfectant. So I am pleased to see our Financial Services Subcommittee on Oversight shedding light on the continued discrimination and injustices subjected onto our LGBTQIA plus neighbors and community members. I'm proud to say that the Commonwealth is home to the second largest LGBTQ plus community in the nation. And for decades, our Commonwealth has led the way in securing equality and justice for our LGBTQ plus community. In 1989, after a nearly 20-year fight, the Commonwealth became the second state in the nation to pass a law prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation in employment, housing, and other public accommodations in 1989. In 2003, we became the first state to legalize same-sex marriage, and while our track record is laudable, disparities persist. 1 in 5 LGBTQ individuals across our country live in poverty. 1 in 3 transgender individuals and cisgender bisexual women are living below the poverty line. LGBTQ youth of color in the greater Boston area are disproportionately more likely to be unemployed. Almost 2/3 of transgender individuals across the Commonwealth report experiencing discrimination in public spaces. So we know these problems are interconnected, and the solution must also operate from a level of intersectionality in order to address these negative outcomes for one's health, safety, and overall prosperity. Because the quest for equality and justice does not stop at the stroke of a pen and the passage of a bill, it takes continued work to ensure compliance and to hold industry and bad actors accountable when they are breaking the law. This is even more important now as we face an administration set on quite literally terrorizing the LGBTQIA community. So this hearing, again, is timely, and I'm wearing another hat because I also have the honor of vice chairing the Aging and Families Task Force. And so one of my priorities on this task force is to develop policies that are nuanced and that speak to the lived experiences of our seniors, especially those that are sadly recloseting just for the purposes of having housing. So LGBTQ justice is senior justice, and senior issues are LGBTQ issues. In 2012, the Commonwealth's Executive Office of Elder Affairs was the first to designate LGBTQ elders as a population of greatest need under the Older Americans Act. So again, in many ways, the Commonwealth, and representing the Massachusetts 7th, I'm proud to say we are leading, but these inequities and disparities exist and they persist. And we've spoken about the impact of the Equality Act and what that could do. But in an effort to continue to shine some sunlight here on the extent of these injustices, Mr. Adam, thank you so much for speaking to the impact of having fewer assets and less capital and retirement savings, speaking to isolation, limited opportunities for long-term care and senior housing. But I just want us to speak, and Ms. Tobin, if you would, more to the social impact of this. This is traumatic. The community is being terrorized. And so, I hope that the Senate will do their job and will continue to organize to unfortunately have to force their hand to do that. But if you could just speak more to the confluence of all those many hurts, what is this impact?
Well, Congresswoman, it will take years, I think, to understand the true scope of the harms done by the government's turning on a vulnerable minority of Americans, and in fact, of course, many vulnerable minorities of Americans in this way. We know even the FBI's woefully incomplete hate crime statistics have been spiking. We know that we hear from more and more parents and families and students around the country all the time who are scared because the atmosphere created by this, the president didn't create this kind of hate, but he does seem to be feeding it every day. And, that it's very scary for families that we hear about every day. We already see many transgender people, as I've said, who are homeless and afraid to seek shelter, and the kinds of steps that HUD is taking could further deter people and leave them out on the streets vulnerable to violence. We're aware already of many cases of transgender people transgender women on the street being targeted for violence. So it's very serious.
It's my time. I hope there'll be a second round. Thank you.
Gentlelady's
for being
time
here.